And keep that applause going for Rick. Big round of applause for Rick. Come on, one more time for Rick.
In October of 1977, my mother's boyfriend sat down next to her at a bar that she owned, and in an act that looked like kindness, put his right hand up on her left shoulder, put a gun to her head, and pulled the trigger, killing her instantly. That event sent me down a path where my belief in God could best be described as agnostic at best. The truth is, I didn't believe, and I couldn't. I had been always told that God represented faith and kindness and love and compassion, but I didn't live in that world. I lived in a world where I was woken at 3 o'clock in the morning by my aunt who lived an hour and a half away, and I was put into the backseat of a car, and I was driven to my grandmother's house, and I could hear her screams as she was told that her daughter had been killed. And I lived in a world where that aunt knelt next to that car door and said, "I'm sorry, baby, Mama's gone." For the next 30 years, I would win every single "is there a God" debate that I was in because I held that ultimate trump card. And by the time I got to college, I was debaucherous. I used to tell people, not only am I going to hell, but when I get there, if I'm waiting in line, Satan's going to be like, "Who's that back there, Sanchez? You don't have to wait in line, dude. Come on up here. Help me take names." You can imagine my surprise when in 2008, my then 7-year-old daughter woke up one Sunday morning at 9 o'clock and said, "Mom, Dad, I want to go to church." You can't find the right words to explain to your 7-year-old daughter that if Daddy steps foot inside of a church after 30 years of bad-mouthing the man, he's probably going to get struck by lightning. So we put her off with a lie, and we said, "I'm sorry, baby, we missed it. Church starts at 10. It's already 9. We don't have time." So the following week, she was up at 7. Like Christmas morning. "Mom, Dad, it's 7 o'clock. Church starts at 10. We've got time." So we got up. I had breakfast. I put on my best flame retardant outfit. And we walked down the street 5 houses to get to the church that stood at the end of my block. And to my surprise, I was not struck by lightning. I was greeted by strangers with kindness and with love. And I went inside and I listened to this preacher talk as if he had been in my house. He talked about compassion and understanding and a path through the church and God that wasn't fire and brimstone, but instead was paved with good deeds and understanding and compassion. And I decided that I wanted to know a little more, so I asked him if I could come back even though I was an atheist. And he said yes. And we ended up staying at that church, and I would eventually stand in front of that pastor and say 6 words that changed my life forever. And as it turns out, God had been preparing for that particular moment for 30 years. Because what I didn't know at the time was that in September of 1977, a month before my mother had been killed, this pastor was a 17-year-old kid. Not a good kid, living on the wrong side of the tracks, maybe making some bad choices. But he was chasing a girl, and the girl invited him to a Christian concert, and he went. And during a break in that concert, they played the Eagles over the loudspeaker, and he took a youth pastor aside and said he wanted to know more. So he went on to Bible college after that. He became a pastor in the early 80s and take over a small church in Missouri. From there, he was promoted up to a little bigger church in Missouri, and then he went off to Indiana for a few years with a bigger congregation, and eventually California, and then 12 years in Alaska, where he thought he was going to spend the rest of his life. And then he planted a church in Riverside County and grew it to 100. And then finally, God called him to a little church at the end of my block. I'm sorry. This man now had 30 years experience of dealing with angry and sad, broken idiots like myself, and he finally was the right person for me to stand in front of and say, Pastor, I don't know how to pray. There's a line in that Eagles song that he was listening to when he gave his life to Christ that resonates really strongly within me. Don Henley sings, "You better let somebody love you before it's too late." And I did. Thank you.
Come on for Rick.